So I ended up in India for 4 months. What was good about it was it wasn't just sitting and chanting Om all day. It was a place where you could do all kinds of therapies. I wasn't sure at the time where I really got anything from it. Yeah, because it's not instant coffee.
No, it's not.
20 years later, you might think, of course.
Yeah.
And that's what she taught me, that therapist.
Yeah.
I've got it now.
Yeah.
And you need that time.
Yeah.
So we're talking, it's now 38 years ago, so it's 1981.
Love that.
And I'm still having realizations from things that I've done
Yeah.
in those 4 months there.
So that 4 months that you had there still keeps giving back to you now.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because this is interesting to me as well, because obviously we've talked about your integrity, we talked about your authenticity, we talk about your artistry, we talk about these miracles that keep finding you.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, right from my first band's first hit, I was going, well, this is none of my doing.
Okay.
It could have been anybody in this band. I just happened to be a member. Mm-hmm. Just a bit of luck, really. Later on, I took more responsibility for the actual playing, and I started composing, and I realised, well, I'm now a big part of what this band's doing. But Love Affair, it didn't matter who was in the band. It was really the singer with an orchestra.
Yeah.
They were all professional musicians, the orchestra, so that's how records were made in those days. But I was getting all this adulation just for being there. You know? And it's almost like in those days, people would go and see bands just to see them.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
He's the one I saw on telly. And then I went through a very deep musical experience with my own band and seeing what am I capable of, you know, and trying to make it difficult and complicated and pushing myself, you know. There's always a niggling feeling. And people, I mean, I used to do interviews then, you know, with journalists, and they say, well, I mean, what do you think there's more left for you to do? What's left for you to do? It's like they think, you know, well, I've done this, I've had those hits, I've done all that, been around the world. And my stock answer was, I've only scratched the surface. This is just the beginning. Yeah. And people were surprised by that. And I thought, well, thank God for that. I'm glad I've got this constant itch and dissatisfaction. Well, that was great, but that's not it either. If I follow my mum, I've still got another quarter century left, so plenty of time. Yeah. But
I was like, aren't you thinking about retiring? I mean, I probably will never retire, but yeah.
My dream of the perfect passing on of a musician is like one of my favourite bass players came to the Blue Note in Tokyo when he was in his late 60s. It was Booker T and the MGs, who were a Stax Records soul band. Yeah. And he was a bass player called Donald Duck Dunn. Played a wonderful concert. Went to the hotel, put his head down, and never woke up. And I thought, that would do me fine. You play on the last night of your life, and then you slip away quietly. After India, I went to Brussels. It was another series of random occurrences, really, but I ended up in Brussels for a year, where I basically learned to speak French properly, because I could already speak some French, because my parents, being teachers, the entire family had long summer holidays, so we would go camping in France for 2 months every year. Yep. And, you know, since I was a little boy. So I picked up French, as kids do, very quickly. And I never picked up a book. It's called osmosis, and it's the loveliest, laziest way to learn is immersion. Yeah. Which is what all children do. Yeah. They immerse, and it's a miracle how a little baby will learn to speak, and all those words, they'll just get it. Yeah. Well, I got it with French doing that, and I feel sorry for people who are learning a language that's from another country that's far away. If you're going to learn it, just go there. Yeah. And stay there and force yourself to speak it all day, every day. And then I went to America, because I was now out of England. That was like, I'm away. I'm now an expat. I've decided that. Because the punk era had come and gone, and I wasn't that keen on what replaced it. Yeah. Sort of slick synth pop, very manufactured, very clever. And plus Thatcher was in, and that wasn't a very happy time either. So, you know, but I don't even remember consciously thinking that. I don't like the music, I don't like Thatcher. I just moved. Yeah. And that's most of the big jumps in my life have happened just like you go with the tide. So I don't know where that tide comes from, but it just takes you. It took me from Brussels to America, and I wandered around America for a couple of years, actually. And then I remember sitting in New York, and here comes another little miracle. I'm sorry, not New York, Los Angeles. I was sitting there with my English girlfriend, and I hadn't really succeeded in getting any good work other than odd jobs. I thought, well, it's time to go somewhere. And a friend had a big atlas like that, and I opened it to America, and I looked at all the main cities. I thought, well, I've been to all of those. Nothing's grabbing me. What's the next page? And literally the next page was Japan. And a light went off, and it's just like, that's it. No question, we're off. And within a week we were here. Not a word of Japanese, no friends here, no house here, no job, nothing. Just came, started from zero, which is one of the greatest countries to start from zero in, I think. I fell in love with it from day one.
Oh.
And this is 1985. And I started off teaching English. That's all right, it's quick and easy, get some money. And I found I wasn't very good, again, because curriculum,
Me too.
curriculum.
Yeah.
And I found through a classified ad, a copywriting job, writing about Yamaha synthesizers in English, which is a great job, and I learned to use a computer from that job.
Wow.
I knew that some people here would know me from the major bands I've been in.
Yeah.
I had no idea that anybody knew about the minor stuff
Oh, well,
I'd done.
that's Japan, isn't it?
Yeah, nerds, right? Nerdy, otaku, maniac, all those great words. And this bloke came to me and said, look, I've got your album, it's got Japanese notes on it. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they asked me to play in little clubs. And I had no gear, so I just played a piano, for starters, and just improvised. And it was like really starting from zero again. Like, you are now a different musician. And you can play whatever you want, and they'll listen politely. They won't shout, all the young dudes! You know, you won't get any of that here. People don't do that here.
No. People are interested in what you're doing.
They're very interested, they're very attentive. And so that really encouraged me to try new stuff. And then one of the first albums I made here was called Water Music, which is very symbolic of my flowing tendency, you know. And that was made in 3 days just by improvising. And I thought, I know how to improvise now. That's my favorite way to play, because you start with nothing. You don't come with a plan. You know, for jazz musicians, you improvise on the melody. So you have a song that everybody knows, you know, My Funny Valentine, and you improvise on that melody.
But I
improvise
from
on
zero.
nothing. And I might do something like this. I'll just pick up something that makes a noise. And I'll start the concert like that. Think, right, what shall I do next? You know, and I'll pick up another toy maybe.
Yeah.
And then I'll go to them and play one note. And just where we're going today.
So, all right, I'm super curious to know, how did you end up working with Yoko Ono?
Again, it's one of those things where you just say, how about this? And it happens. With no effort, no pressure, and no plans. Actually, I was asked to do a film score first, and the film score led to a soundtrack album from a large record company, and then they said, well, that was good, do you want to make another album? So I made another album which was only piano, and I thought, it's time I did this. And it's one of the hardest albums I've ever made, because there was no frills, no fancy business. You just got to go to the piano and do something great.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just couldn't do it, so I'd just go for a walk around the town and come back desperate. Like, the walk didn't even help me, and I come back desperate, and I just go there and go, maybe this will work, and I just put my hands on the keyboard, and something happened. So sometimes there's an element of desperation, but you don't give up. You see, you're desperate, but you keep going.
You're desperate, but you keep going. So you just take some action, any action, even inside desperation.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay.
Well, it worked out to be one of my most popular albums here. I called it Peace in the Heart of the City. Like, as I said, I lived near Mount Fuji for a while. I got lonely, and for me, the country is a place to visit. And the city is a place to live, because I'm a Londoner, maybe. And there's nothing nicer to me than being in a nice park in the city, so you can have tranquility. But there's other people around who are also feeling relaxed and happy, and kids playing. And that makes me you know, happy,
Yeah.
than just being alone looking at Mount Fuji. Very nice, but
Yeah, so it sounds
that
like
it?
you benefit from having people around you as well,
is
and from
about that.
feeling that connection and that energy of people.
They gave the album a Japanese title, which is a bit different, but they thought it would be a good selling point. And it was called Toshise Katsusha no Tame no Ongaku, which simply means music for city dwellers or music for city workers. So they got the essence of it. And that title, I think, helped it to sell a lot more. And because of that, fairly quickly, I got an offer from the Osaka City Council, where in 1990 they did a big expo related to plants and flowers and forests, and it was called Hana no Banpaku, which means the kind of the flower expo. They wanted me to play in the main pavilion because there was pavilions from all over the world, and they wanted me in the main pavilion, the Osaka City Pavilion, which was the only permanent building they built there. All the rest were just for the duration of the expo, and then they were destroyed and the park was made. So I played in that building for 6 months, every day. And one thing I can remember that still tears me apart, after one of those afternoon concerts I played there, to people who didn't know me from Adam, they were just there for the expo, a very old lady, probably in her 80s, came up to me with tears in her eyes. And she said, "You reminded me of my childhood, your music." I thought, oh, doesn't get any better, does it?
No, it doesn't. Some people maintain that when we do something to heal ourselves, we're healing other people anyway, because what we need, somebody else needs too.
True.
You just make such a strong connection with people, don't you? It's so beautiful that you know yourself so well.
So I haven't answered your question.
No, you
yet.
haven't.
Well, that's it. I was thinking of what to do next because this album had gone quite well. I thought, well, what's next? Because I don't have an automatic sequel ready.
No.
I haven't composed much at all since then, and I don't fancy walking the streets in sheer desperation trying to dig something else up. It wasn't much fun, frankly. So I just thought, I'm just going to relax and go and see some movies. So I went with a friend to see a movie called Imagine, which was the first full-length movie that had been made about John Lennon and his passing and his wife. And it was a documentary. And I was so moved by it, I thought, that's it. That's my next album. I'm just going to do John Lennon's songs, the love songs, because I'll stay with a quiet piano approach. So I can't do any rock stuff. But he's written so many great love songs. There's plenty for a whole album. I nearly finished the album, and I just casually said to the record company, "You know what, it'd be nice to have Yoko Ono do something on this. You speak your mind and look what happens."
Yeah,
and they
exactly.
said, "Oh yeah, our record company president, he's a friend of ours, he'll give her a call." And he called her, and she came. She was happening to be coming to Tokyo like a week later or something. And she said, "Well, I haven't got a lot of time, so can you record me in my hotel room?" I said, "Sure, absolutely." Now, you know what she sings like. It's a bit like Fingers on a Blackboard.
It's her own
Which
style.
is brilliant for certain songs.
Yeah.
But this is a very quiet album. So I said, "Would you mind just reading the lyrics of one of John's songs?" She said, "Certainly." Because by that time we'd already spoken on the phone, and I thought, she's got a nice voice.
Yeah.
It's quite soft.
Yeah.
And so we discussed a few songs, and we decided on this song that's simply called Love. So it goes, "Love is real, real is love.
Yeah.
Love is touch, touch is love." It's just beautiful. So I recorded the piano first, and then we went to her hotel room, the Okura Hotel,
Yeah.
of course, and she put the headphones on, listened to my piano, and read the lyrics several times, and it was such a moving thing, of her reading her dead husband's lyrics. She told us lots of lovely little stories and anecdotes about her and John, because he spent a lot of time in Japan with her. So we did that. I was with her for about 3 hours, actually, in the hotel room. And some nice photos were taken, which I still have. Then I went to the job of mixing, because I wanted to play with her voice and make it a bit avant-garde and sort of do looping and things, and which was quite new at that time. And she called me to check how it was going. She called me about 3 or 4 times in the next couple of months to ask how it's going. And but she made some very clear suggestions about what I could do with the song. I mean, very specific. So I thought, she knows about studios. She's learned the craft.
You know, she's an artist as well, though, isn't she?
Yeah.
In probably a similar kind of vein that you are.
She is, and so she's very specific. Right from the beginning, her work was very specific. It wasn't vague, wishy-washy, impressionistic. It was one statement, like a word yes written on the ceiling, which is what John Lennon fell in love with her because of.
And did she like it, the final product?
She liked it a lot, and she sent me a Christmas card that year saying, I've just listened to the album again and I really love it. So I thought, thank you.
Yeah. So how do we kind of bring ourselves up to date? So
Well, I don't know how much time we got left, but very briefly about the light art. I used to call it light painting, but that now, a lot of people are doing it, but for most people, light painting means you put the camera on the tripod and you open the shutter and then you wave lights around in front of it and draw in the air with lights. Well, mine's completely the opposite. I wave the camera around. And so I started doing this with the camera, or I'd hang the camera around my neck and ride a bike while the shutter was open and just see what I got. And that was tremendously exciting because you never knew what you're going to get. And it wasn't like digital where you could see it immediately. You had to wait till the next day, so you had to be patient. Plus there's the cost. Digital all free, but this one you had to pay for every print. And I threw away 80% of them because I didn't like them. Some of them I really liked, and I thought, I'm going to keep going with this. And I've kept going for over 20 years, refining the technique and using different kinds of light sources. And it thrills me. It's like music for the eyes. To me, it's what it is. I was given this chance because an English friend of mine, a great architect here, opened a club called Super Deluxe. And it was a brand new club in 2000. Mark Dytham.
Yeah.
In 2003. And I went down there and I thought, oh, this is lovely. It's such a bigger space compared to most clubs.
Yeah.
And I like the feeling of it here. And I like him anyway. We're very close. I said, can I play? He said, sure, of course, play. So I did a gig and I said, I love it. Can I play here once a month? He said, of course you can.
So this was Morgan's Salon or Morgan's Organ?
It was Morgan's Organ, that's what I called it, yeah. So I thought, well, this is going to be my little exploratorium, if you like, where I'm just going to experiment and I'll bring a different keyboard or a few keyboards and devices down each time and see what I can come up with in front of a small audience.
Right.
Which they had to be there. And I recorded every one, you see, so I'm now sitting on an archive of a lot of good music. 200 hours of good music, because I did it for 10 years.
Wow. Just say, like, when we met for the first time a couple of years ago, you were kind of at an impasse, if I remember rightly. And so you arrived at my doorstep, and then, again, miracles started to happen. So would you want to tell us a little bit about that? So at that point you had Morgan's Organ, you had your salon here, but the nature of advert music and so on had started to change, is that right? And so
there was a bit of a recession, frankly, and the budgets started to shrink.
Yeah.
And it still continues to do so.
Yep.
So I'm not doing as much of that work as I used to.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit worried about that because this place is not cheap.
No.
But I love it and I've got to keep it going.
Yes.
And actually, the funny thing was I just had an inheritance around that time and I hadn't a clue what to do with it.
Yeah.
The mind goes through things, doesn't it? Even when good things happen, your mind worries.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to do something. I've got to make a bold gesture here with this little windfall I've got.
Interesting.
Buy something amazing or go somewhere amazing. And I couldn't think of anything. You know, I was looking at catalogues and things, catalogues of instruments and cameras. And I just thought, nothing's like grabbing me. Usually I have no problem buying things. Why am I having a problem here? And I just had to accept, or decided to accept, that maybe I didn't need a dramatic, bold gesture right now. I need to just chill. Because it's the old Merry Haddy again, you know. There's your Merry and there's your Haddy. Perhaps this is the Haddy time.
Yeah.
Don't fight it, you know. Just let it happen. You know, this guru in India that I'd spent a few months with had a very good turn of phrase about all sorts of interesting things. And he was talking about when he was young and he was a wild man and he would explore and experiment. He used to like jumping into whirlpools and jumping into rough seas to see, well, how do I get out of this?
That's so,
right.
that sounds terrifying to me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And he might even have been kidding us, but the point was they're like parables. It doesn't even matter whether he really did it, but the parable teaches you something.
Yeah.
But one day I had the chance to find out for real. So I was in the sea. I went swimming by myself on a beach, and it was a windy day and I didn't care much, and the waves were a bit high and I didn't care much. And I was just, well, hey, this is fun. And I swam out a bit, not that far, but I swam out. And I thought, well, that was fun, I'll go back now. Where's back? I couldn't see the beach. This is not an exciting moment. So the waves were kept going up all around me and I couldn't see the beach. I tried to jump up, couldn't see it. I was out of my depth, so I couldn't jump up very high. And then I remember what this bloke had said, just go down where it's quiet, take a break. And I thought, I've got to try this, because what else can I do? I'm exhausted already. And I went down and I swam down 6, 8, 10 feet, and he was right. It was completely calm down there. And I could have a break, just as long as I could hold my breath. And I stopped panicking. And thought, right, I'll go up again, see what I can see. Still can't see the beach. All right, go down again. And I did that 3 or 4 times. And then the 5th time I came up, I saw a rock sticking out of the sea. And I headed for it with all my energy and grabbed this rock. And I had one of the most blissful moments of my life, hanging onto this rock. I wasn't even thinking, thank God I'm safe now, I'll be all right. I was simply thinking, isn't nature beautiful? Look at that blue sky. Look at these waves. And I was in absolute ecstasy, bliss, and holding onto this rock. And then I looked back and thought, and I could see the beach. I thought, oh, I'm all right now. But this was such a moment of oneness with nature. And his little words of advice saved my life, you know. And then I headed back to the beach, and there was a bunch of teenage boys who've actually been shouting over here to me. They were all too scared to actually jump in and save me, but I can't blame them. And they looked at me, this is just to add a little picturesque note to the story. They looked at me in utter horror, and I thought, what's the matter? I'm all right now. And I looked down, and my whole chest was a massive red, because the rock was covered in barnacles and mussels.
Oh my God.
And I was ripped to pieces, and I didn't feel a thing, you know. And I don't want to get on the morbid details too much, because the point of the story is, when you're in a violent, panicky situation, go down, relax, chill. And I apply that now as much as I can to my daily life. And so in business or in finance, things aren't going well, or in a relationship, just chill and go down and wait.
Oh, I love it.
Don't fight and get frantic.
Yeah.
And when I look back, I think I've actually always been like that. He just reminded me. You know, and this near-death experience, which it was, reminded me.
And that's actually a coaching technique. That if you're feeling completely wild above the water, that you actually imagine yourself going down underneath the water where it's really calm. And once you visualize getting there, you can be more creative and think about what you need to do more. Absolutely love it. So another thing I remember from that time is this, which is, you told me a little secret, which was like, I think there might be something about the Hoople doing a tour. And I was like, oh, really? And I was like, make the call, send the email, whatever it is you need to do the thing. Lo and behold,
right.
This year it actually started, the wheel started in motion.
Yeah, well, the Hoople did do a couple of reunion tours prior to this one. First one was 10 years ago, but at that time, all members of the band were still with us. And I wasn't an original member, obviously. I joined halfway through after all the young dudes. But the 5 original guys were still around, and they said they wanted to do a tour. So I went and watched, and they did 5 days in London and at the same theatre, and I had a ball. Yeah. Because friends from all over the world came, and old friends, new friends. So they did that. then a few people, not a few, quite a lot of fans said, well, it's a pity that Morgan and Ariel Bender, our guitarist, couldn't have been part of this. And especially because in the later period of the band, we played on the hits. So we were there. We were the original guys on those records.
Yes.
And so our singer basically thought, yeah, that was a pity. Let's do it with the new guys this time.
Yes.
Especially because when we were in the band, that's when we got really big in America. So most American fans think of the band with us.
And that was this year's tour.
That was
and
this
the way
year's
around
tour.
That was to call it Mott the Hoople 74.
Right.
Genius.
To show that it's like the
Genius.
It's like Mark II version of the band.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So we did that, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, our singer said on the last show, he said, "I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't know it'd be this effing good."
Oh.
He was so pleased.
Yeah.
And the reviews were astounding.
They were astounding. Yeah.
I mean, Variety magazine, which is the biggest one in America, said, "At last, rock and roll has been revived properly." Mm-hmm. Like, are we that good? All we're doing is having fun.
But I just want to ask you one question here, a very practical one. Where do you get your energy from for this kind of thing?
I've never lost it, I think.
You never lost it.
It's always been there.
Yeah.
And even through my very quiet periods,
Yeah.
I was keeping my spirit alive, if you like.
Yeah.
Because I've never been one for going to the gym or anything like that.
No.
It's the camaraderie is a huge part of that.
The camaraderie, yeah.
And the songs are great. They're from the heart. Now I listen to the songs properly. Back in the day, it's like, oh, yeah, great music.
Yeah.
Now I read all the lyrics and I'm very moved by the things he's written. He's a very compassionate man. You know, you just love it, sharing this with people.
Yeah.
And the audiences, they're just amazing. I mean, grown men are weeping in the aisles because they've waited 40 years to see this.
Oh.
Or some of them have never seen it, and now at last, and this could be the last time. Every concert was like, this could be the last time. In the audience,
Yeah.
they were thinking like that. So it's a very intense atmosphere and beautiful, you know. So that gives you huge amounts of energy.
So to date then, Morgan, how would you wrap up your experience having listened to yourself talking here? And
Well, Merry Harry is a word I love to use.
Merry Harry.
You just go with the flow, and
Yeah.
it's like, it's all effortless. But there is effort and there's energy, but
Yeah.
there's no resisting what's happening around you.
Yeah.
So if that's the sort of key phrase of what I do, that's it really, just go with the flow.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Morgan. That was fascinating, legendary. I absolutely loved it.
Then you get the
Thank
prize.
you.
There you are. And I'll change my hat. Now you can see me bored for a second, right? Are we looking good?
So I want to say a massive thing. You can stay in the shot if you want to, Morgan. I want to say a huge thank you to amazing Morgan for that. As he said, that going up, Merry Harry, the ups, the downs, going with it, leading a long life and having so many things and going with the flow. And the thing that I love the most here is just waiting for those miracles to come in and find you and being ready for them and really honouring the responsibilities that you have in the real world so that you can be ready for these miracles, so that you can have everything around you that you need to make the miracles happen. And just being connected to people and connected to nature and taking all the lessons and being a person of integrity, authenticity, love, readiness, art, beauty. I'm just so thrilled that you agreed to do this interview. I adore you. Thank you, my darling.
Mwah.